Today we will learn about range of data and its mean, which is a measure of the central tendency of a set of numbers in a range of data. Say we need to find out how batsman Virat performed in a particular match. Can you think of a way by which this can be done? Can you guess? Well, let me tell you. We need numerical information to take decisions in such situations. We would need to list out the number of runs scored by Virat in some of his innings. Let's say the number of runs scored by Virat in his 7 innings are 85, 70, 59, 70, 65, 70, 85. This essential numerical information can be referred to as data, and each number can be referred to as an observation. The smallest observation in the data provided is 59 and the largest observation is 85. If we subtract the smallest observation from the largest observation, then this gives us the range of observations from the data provided for Virat's innings. The range of runs is 85 minus 59 is equal to 26. The range of data provides us with detailed information about the data, such as the extension of data is from 59 to 85. Considering that we have collected data for some innings, we know how Virat has performed in these innings. However, it is difficult to get information about Virat's performance in all his innings by looking at these figures, as his performance must have varied in different innings. In such situations, we need a number that can represent this group of observations. That is, a central tendency for the entire data set. We call this number representative value or central value. The mean, median, and mode are measures of central tendency, but their suitability and applicability depends on the requirement. In this video, we will focus on the suitability and purpose of mean. In general terms, mean is referred to as average. It is also referred to as arithmetic mean. To derive mean, you need to divide the sum of all observations by the number of observations. For deriving mean for Virat's innings, we will need to add up the number of runs provided in the data and then divide it by the number of innings for which the data is provided. 504 divided by 7 is equal to 72. We deduce that the mean of Virat's number of runs from the data provided is 72 runs. That is, Virat had an average of 72 runs in each innings. The mean derived tells us that if Virat had scored equal runs in each innings, he would have scored as many as 72 runs in each innings. We see that 72 is located between the smallest observation 59 and the largest observation 85. It can be generalized that mean is a number between the smallest observation and the largest observation, indicating that mean is always within the data range. Today we learned about the range of data and a measure of central tendency, mean. In the next video, we will learn about the measure of central tendency, median, and mode. Let us now understand the other measures of central tendency, median, and mode. We have learned about data range and its mean in the previous video. Let us now understand the other measures of central tendency, median, and mode. Like mean, mode is also a representative value of the group. Let us take the data for the number of runs for Virat's 7 innings. If we were to create a table for these runs using tally marks, we would observe that the smallest number, 59, appears only once in the range of data. We will therefore draw a straight line in front of it. Similarly, we will draw straight lines for 65. 70 appears 3 times. We will draw 3 straight lines against it. As well, 85 appears 2 times, considering that we will draw 2 lines. Now, considering table, we know now that 70 is the most frequently observed observation in this group. We can call this as mode of the group. Now, if we were to arrange this group of runs in ascending order or descending order, they will be marked as shown here. We will see the mid value is 70. This value divides observations into 2 equal groups, each of which has 3 observations. When a range of data is arranged in ascending or descending order, the middle value on the range is known as the median. As you can see, in this case, the mode and the median on a range are the same observations. However, this may not always be the case. The mode and the median can differ. Let us take another example to understand this. Listed here are the number of runs in some of Rohit's innings. We see that 35 is observed 3 times in the range, so we can call it the mode of the range. However, on arranging the observations in ascending order, the middle value is 29. That is, the median is 29. Thus, the mode and the median are not equal here. The number of observations in these groups of numbers is an odd number. So, the median of a group of numbers can be found identifying the middle number when the observations are arranged in an ascending or descending order. Can you think of how median will be deduced if the number of observations is even? Can you guess? Well, let me explain. In cases where the number of observations in a group is an even number, to obtain the median, we arrange the numbers in ascending or descending order and derive the mean of the middle 2 numbers. So, for example, for the set of observations 21, 23, 27, 29, 35, 35, numbers 27 and 29 are the 2 middle numbers. To find the median for this data, we first derive the mean of the 2 middle numbers. 27 plus 29 divided by 2 is equal to 28. Now that we know that the mean of these 2 numbers is 28, we can deduce that the median of these observations is 28. Even though 28 is not a part of the data provided, it divides the group of data into 2 equal parts. Let us now look at another interesting example. Here is the data of colors of balloons and their corresponding numbers sold by a balloon seller. Do you think an understanding of mean and mode will help the balloon seller identify the color of balloons that he should buy more? Can you think how this information will be helpful? Well, let's see. On obtaining the mean, the balloon seller will be able to derive the number of balloons that he is able to sell on average in a given time frame. However, from this, he will not be able to decide upon the color of balloons that he should be procuring in more numbers. This is where an understanding of mode will come into the picture. From the data available, it is evident that the balloon seller has sold more red-colored balloons than any other color, which means that the mode is 25. It can therefore be inferred that he should buy more red-colored balloons so that he has sufficient number of red balloons for sale. In this way, we need different representative values in different situations as per the requirement. Friends, wasn't it exciting to learn about the measures of central tendency, median and mode? In the next video, we will see some more interesting examples related to these measures of central tendency. Today we will elaborate and learn more about the concepts of mean, median, mode and range of data. This table provides you with the costs of 5 textbooks of different subjects. Using this information, can you calculate the mean, median, mode and range of the data? We all know mean is equal to sum of all observations divided by number of observations. Using this formula, we can derive the mean of the values given in the table. The answer of this is 53. Let us also try deriving the range of this data by subtracting the smallest observation 46 from the largest observation 60. The range comes out to be 14. Now to find the median, let us arrange the data in ascending or descending order. Ascending order. We have learned that the observation in the middle of the range is the median of the range. Looking at the data provided, observation 54 is the centermost value and therefore it is the median. Also, we have learned that in a group of data, the most frequently occurring observation is called the mode of the observation group. Looking back at the data provided for the costs of the textbooks, you may see that each observation has occurred at most once. Do you think we can infer that all observations in this data are modes? Well, yes, they are. This brings us to the conclusion that a data set can contain more than one modes. Do you think the mean and the median also be more than one for a data set? Why don't you find that out by yourself? In this way, we have found the mean, median, mode and the range in the group of data shown. Next example. There are 9 numbers provided. Of these 9, the mean of 4 numbers is 20 and the mean of the remaining 5 numbers is 25. Can you derive the mean of all the numbers? Friends, we know that mean is equal to sum of all observations divided by number of observations. We can also say that mean into number of observations is equal to sum of all observations. Considering this formula, sum of 4 observations is equal to 20 multiplied by 4 is equal to 80. Sum of 5 observations is equal to 25 multiplied by 5 is equal to 125. Therefore, the sum of all observations 4 plus 5 is equal to 9 will be 80 plus 125 is equal to 205. Now the mean will be derived as mean is equal to sum of all observations divided by number of observations. 205 divided by 9 is equal to 22.77. Let us look at an example. For finding the mode of a set of data. As you can see, there are so many number of observations. Therefore, we will be using tally marks to find the mode. For this, we will first create a table. We will place the data in the first column, the tally marks in the second column, and the number of digits in the third column. Let us go from left to right and make tally marks. Now pause the video and take a moment to think. Looking at the table, we can easily infer that both 7 and 4 have come at most 9 times. Hence, 7 and 4 are the modes for the provided data set. Today we saw some examples of how to derive mean, median, mode, and range from a set of data. In the next video, we will learn about some mistakes and misconceptions related to mean, median, and mode. Today we will discuss some misconceptions and common errors related to mean, median, and range. Misconception 1. Find the range of data shown. Some children have the misconception that the largest figure or number in a group of data is called range. But this is wrong. Hence, option 1 will be the wrong answer. The difference between the largest figure and the smallest figure in a group of data is called range. That is, the difference is obtained by subtracting the smallest data from the largest data in the group of data. So the range will be 9 minus 2 is equal to 7. That is, option 2 will be the correct answer. Misconception 2. Some numbers are given below. What is the mean of this group of numbers? Because of the confusion between the mean and the median, children think that mean is the middle number of the series of numbers, that is 33, which is option 2. But this answer will be incorrect. Mean is equal to sum of all observations divided by number of observations. Therefore, the mean here will be 28. Hence, option 1 will be the correct answer. Keep in mind that when given numbers are arranged in ascending or descending order, then the number in the middle is called median. Here, median is 33. While calculating mean, some children ignore observation 0. Like here, they think that they only have to get the mean of these 6 observations and they ignore 0. So they divide the sum of these 6 observations by 6, which gives them the mean 32.66, which will be a wrong answer. Hence, option 3 will be the wrong answer. Now let's discuss some mistakes. Mistake 1. Finding the median incorrectly. To find the median among these, some children find the median without arranging the data in order. Like here, they think that 9 is the median. But this is a misunderstanding. Only after arranging the data in some order can we find the median. Like here, the ascending and descending order will be: the middle term in the observation is the median. Hence, 6 will be the median. Mistake 2. Now look at this group of numbers. Here the observations are in ascending order and the number of observations is 10. Some children divide the number of observation by 2 to find the place of the median. Like here, 10 divided by 2 is equal to 5. So they think that the median is a number on the 5th place, that is 10, which is a misunderstanding. Keep in mind that when the number of observations is even, then we get the mean of the 2 numbers in the middle as the median. As there are 2 numbers in the middle, 10 and 12, so the median will be 10 plus 12 divided by 2 is equal to 22 divided by 2 is equal to 11. So today we have discussed some misconceptions and mistakes related to mean, median, and range.
Today we will learn bar graph. Numbers from which information can be collected are called data. Here, data is shown in numerical form. Let's represent this information in a pictorial form. We can make a pictograph or bar graph. We have learned about these in previous class. Let's discuss a bar graph. Bar graphs are a way of representing numerical data in a pictorial form by creating bars of equal width at equal distances. The length of each bar in the bar graph displays the given number. We can draw the bar graph either horizontally or vertically. The number of students coming from different colonies in a school are shown in following table. Let us display this data in the form of a bar graph. First, we will draw the x-axis and the y-axis. Now we will show various categories on the x-axis, like here, name of colonies. We will show the number of students on the y-axis. We will take a convenient scale to represent numerical data correctly. Here, we can take this scale as 1 unit is equal to 9 students. Because all the numbers are multiples of 9, so we will be able to represent these numbers. In this way, we will show the numbers 0, 9, 18, etc. on the y-axis. The maximum value here is 54, but for our convenience, we have taken numbers up to 63 on the y-axis. Now, we will draw a bar. In the bar graph, we represent the data in the form of bars. The number of students coming from colony 1 is 36. So, we will draw the bar in such a way that its length should be numbered 36. In the same way, we will draw bars of equal width for all the colonies at equal distances. Thus, we have drawn the bar graph to show the number of students coming from different colonies in the school. This is a vertical bar graph. We can also draw it horizontally like this. Now, observe the bar graph. Can you tell me maximum number of students come from which colony? Just by looking at the graph, you will be able to tell that maximum number of students come from colony 2. In this way, the bar graph helps us to get the information by looking and comparing data. Now, find out yourself what kind of information you can collect from this bar graph. Today we have learned the bar graph. In the next video, we will learn double bar graph. Today we will learn double bar graph. In the previous video, we have learned the bar graphs. Now, let's learn the double bar graph. Here we are given total number of students and girls from different cities. Let us represent this data in different way. If we draw different graphs for both these tables, we can get information such as maximum number of girls came from which city. But if we are required to get combined information like which city has all girl students, then how we can find it? Think. We cannot get combined information from different bar graphs. Here, the number of students and the number of girls are related to each other. In such a situation, if we represent both types of data together in pictorial form, then it will be more convenient for us to understand the data. This feature provides us with a double bar graph. Drawing a double bar graph is very similar to drawing a bar graph. First, we will draw the x-axis and the y-axis. Now we will show various categories on x-axis, like here, name of cities. On the y-axis, we will show the number of students. We will take a convenient scale to represent the numerical data correctly. Here we can take this scale as 1 unit is equal to 9 students. Because all the numbers are multiples of 9, so we will show the numbers 0, 9, 18, etc. on the y-axis. The maximum value here is 54, but for our convenience, we have taken numbers up to 63 on the y-axis. Step 4. Now we will draw a graph. We will denote the number of students coming from city 1 and the number of girls with a pair of bars in which one bar will represent the number of students and the other bar will denote the number of girls. Similarly, we will show the number of students coming from all the cities and the number of girls in pictorial form. Remember that we will keep the same width of each bar and keep the same distance between the pair of bars made for different cities. This will give us double bar graph. Now, you can draw a double bar graph either horizontally or vertically. You can get various information from this double bar graph. For example, the number of girls coming to school from city 3 and city 4 are equal. In the same way, we can also get combined information like the number of students coming to school from city 4 and number of girls are equal. Try yourself to get more similar information. In this way, with the help of double bar graph, we can compare two types of data related to each other and get different types of information. Today we have learned double bar graph. In the next video, we will see interesting examples related to the bar graph and double bar graph. Today we will see some interesting examples related to bar graph and double bar graph. The bar graph shown depicts the number of patients visiting a hospital. Read the bar graph and answer the following questions. On which day the number of patients coming to the hospital was minimum? The number of patients coming to the hospital on different days are indicated as the length of the bar in the graph. In this way, the bar which has the shortest length will give us the answer to this question. We see that length of bars showing the number of patients on Sunday and Tuesday is same and is smaller than length of the all bars. So we can say that the least number of patients come to the hospital on Sunday and Tuesday. What is the total number of patients coming to the hospital on Monday, Wednesday and Thursday? Based on the length of the bars, we can say that in the hospital, 22 patients visited on Monday, 13 patients on Wednesday and 15 patients on Thursday. In this way, the total number of patients coming to hospital on Monday, Wednesday and Thursday is 22 plus 13 plus 15 is equal to 50. Now find yourself the difference in number of patients who came to the hospital on Saturday and Friday. Next example. The following table shows electricity bills of Rohit and Mohit for different months. Represent the information in the double bar graph. Observe the statistics. Can you tell me what would be the convenient scale here? Think. Let me tell you, the smallest number here is 950 and largest number here is 1600. So here we do not have to start from 0, but we can take numbers from 900 to 1700. We will draw a zigzag line to show that we are not showing numbers from 0 to 900. It will be easy to use this scale As there is no number from 0 to 900, we can take 1 unit is equal to 100 rupees as scale. Similarly, we can also take this scale as 1 unit is equal to 200 rupees. Let us take 1 unit is equal to 100 rupees scale and show the electricity bill on the y-axis in rupees. Similarly, months will be indicated on the x-axis. We will draw this type of bars for Rohit and this type of bars for Mohit. Now, we will show the bills of Rohit and Mohit in the month of June by drawing the double bar. Similarly, we will draw a double bar graph for all months. Read the given bar graph and find out the information in the double bar graph. To find out what information is shown in this bar graph, one has to look at what is represented on x-axis and y-axis, along with understanding what each bar represents in a pair of bars. The double bar graph shown is the horizontal double bar graph. Here, names of subjects are shown on the y-axis and the marks are shown on the x-axis. The red color in the pair of bars indicates Rahul's marks and green bars indicates Vishal's marks. Therefore, we can say that this double bar graph compares the marks obtained by Rahul and Vishal in various subjects in an examination. Which subject do you think Rahul needs to pay more attention to? Rahul's marks are denoted by red bars. The shortest length of all red bars is drawn for English subject. This means that out of all the marks of Rahul's subject, he got lowest marks in English. Hence, Rahul have to focus more on English subject. So today we have seen some interesting examples related to bar graphs and double bar graphs. In the next video, we will see some common mistakes related to them. Today we will see some mistakes related to bar graph and double bar graph. Mistake 1. Students often have difficulty in choosing the right scale when drawing a bar graph or a double bar graph. Like here, the number of students present in the class on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday are shown. Children often think that it becomes easier to draw a bar graph if the scale is considered as multiple of 5, 10 and multiple of 10. But this is a misconception. Here we see if all the numbers are multiples of 6, therefore it will take 1 unit is equal to 6 students. Then it will be very easy to draw the bar graph. But if we take the value of the unit as 10, then it will be difficult to represent the numbers shown. It will also increase the chances of mistakes. Can you tell what scale can we take here instead of 1 unit is equal to 6 students? Think. We can also take this scale as 1 unit is equal to 3, 4 or 12 students. Actually, it is not necessary that the given numbers are always multiples of a single number. In such a situation, we choose the scale that allows us to represent more and more numbers. Mistake 2. Some children have difficulties in finding out what information is given in the double bar graph. For example, if they are asked what information is shown in double bar graph, then they are not able to answer it. To find out what information is shown in a double bar graph, it is necessary to look at what is represented on the x-axis and the y-axis, as well as understanding what each bar represents in a pair of bars. Here, the number of ice creams sold is shown on the x-axis and the days are shown on the y-axis. Here, the brown bar represents the number of chocolate ice cream and the pink bar represents the number of strawberry ice creams. With this understanding, we can say that sale of chocolate and strawberry ice creams on different days has been compared in double bar graph shown. So today we have seen some mistakes related to bar graph and double bar graph. Today we will learn about chance and probability. Let us understand these concepts by considering some situations. Here is a bag in which there are 3 red balls. If we take out one ball without seeing in it, will it be a red ball? Think. Absolutely right. Here, without seeing these 3 red balls, getting one red ball is certain. Is it also certain that if we draw out one ball from 3 red balls without seeing in it, then it can be a green ball? Think. Definitely, your answer will be no, because taking a ball without seeing 3 red balls and getting a green ball is impossible. Now look here. Here is one coin. Can you tell whether we will get a head or a tail in the experiment of tossing the coin? Think. Here we certainly cannot predict whether we will get a head or a tail. In such a situation, getting one from either of these two is a possibility or a chance, because these both are possible outcomes. But in this situation, the possibility of getting a head and the possibility of getting a tail are equal. In such a situation, we say that the outcomes are equally likely. Here, both head and tail are equally likely outcomes. Here we have done an experiment of tossing the coin, the outcome of which can be head or tail. Each outcome of an experiment or a collection of outcomes forms an event. Like here, getting head is one event, and similarly, getting tail is also one event. When a coin is tossed, then the outcome can be either a head or a tail. We will represent head with H and tail with T. In this way, we can say that all the outcomes of the experiment of tossing the coin are HT. The possibility of getting of each from these is 1 out of 2, that is 1 by 2. We say that probability of getting head is 1 by 2 and the probability of getting a tail is 1 by 2. In this way, probability tells us that what is the possibility of happening of any event. In this way, probability helps in measuring the possibility. In standard form, probability of an event is equal to number of favorable outcomes of event divided by number of possible outcomes of an experiment. For example, the number of all possible outcomes when a coin is tossed is 2 and number of outcomes favorable to the event of getting the head is 1. So, the probability of getting head is 1 by 2. Now look at this spinner. It has yellow, red, green, pink and blue colors with equal areas of paths. Can you tell what would be the possibility of stopping the spinner at pink color when it is spinned? Think. Let us tell you. Here the area of all colors is equal. That's why the possibility of results will be equal, that is, outcomes are equally likely. In this experiment, there are total 5 possible outcomes. But out of these 5, favorable outcomes is only one, pink color. In this way, on spinning the spinner, the possibility of stopping at pink color is 1 out of 5. We say that on spinning the spinner, the probability of stopping at pink color is 1 by 5. If the outcome of event is certain, the probability of that event is 1, and if the event is impossible, its probability is 0. Like in a bag containing all the red balls, if a ball is taken out, then it will be a red ball. So, the probability of getting a red ball is 1. But it is absolutely unlikely to be a green ball. So, the probability of getting a green ball is 0. But when the event is likely to occur, then the probability is greater than 0 and less than 1. Now you must have understood probability. So, today we have learned about chance and probability. In the next video, we will see some interesting examples related to chance and probability. Today we will learn some interesting examples related to chance and probability. Read the following situations to find out whether they are certain, impossible, or can happen by chance. If the price of one chocolate is ₹5, then price of 10 chocolates will be 50. If we know the price of one item, then we can find the price of any number of items. Here, considering the price of one chocolate, it can be said certainly that the price of 10 chocolates will be 10 multiplied by 5 rupees is equal to 50 rupees. Therefore, the outcome of this event is certain. On throwing the dice, 8 will be obtained. On dice, only number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 are marked. Therefore, it is impossible to get 8 when the dice is thrown. On randomly choosing a student from a class of 12 boys and 8 girls, it will be a boy. Here definitely, number of boys is more, but this does not mean that if a student is selected randomly, it will be a boy. It can also be a girl. That is, if a student is selected randomly, it will be a boy by chance, means possibility. Next example. On throwing the dice, find the probability of getting the odd number. All possible outcomes of experiment of throwing the dice are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Therefore, all possible outcomes of the experiment are 6. Here, we have to find out the probability of getting the odd number. Favorable outcomes for obtaining the odd number is 1, 3, 5. In this way, for getting the odd number, the number of favorable outcomes is 3. Probability of any event is equal to number of outcomes for that event divided by number of all possible outcomes of the experiment. Hence, the probability of getting the odd number is number of outcomes for obtaining odd number divided by number of all possible outcomes of the experiment. In this way, the probability of getting the odd number is 1 by 2. Similarly, can you now find out the probability of getting an even number on throwing the dice? Try yourself. Next example. On some chits, each letter of the word intelligent is written and placed in a jar. If a chit is drawn from the jar without looking into it, what is the probability that N is written on it? Intelligent, this word has total 11 letters, that is, the number of chits will be 11. Therefore, Total number of outcomes will be 11. This word has 2n. So there will be 2 chits on which n will be written. The chit drawn in this way, there are 2 favorable outcomes for n. Hence, the probability of having n on the drawn chit is the number of favorable outcomes of the event divided by number of all possible outcomes, which is equal to 2 by 11. Now you can find out by your own that what is the probability that a vowel is written on the chit. So today we have learned some examples related to chance and probability. In the next video, we will see some misconceptions related to chance and probability. Today we will learn some misconceptions related to chance and probability. Misconception 1. On tossing a coin 15 times, following outcomes are obtained. Find out what will be the result if the coin is tossed next time. Some children see the pattern and think that on tossing a coin, next time outcome T will be obtained. So, they give option 1 as an answer, which is the wrong answer. In such an experiment, it is wrong to predict the outcome based on observations. Keep in mind that after tossing a coin, it cannot be said certainly that we will get a head or tail. The outcome will neither depend on any pattern nor on earlier observations. The coin is tossed any number of times, but in every case, there is equal possibility of getting head or tail. That's why we say that the probability of getting each outcome, head or tail, is 1 by 2. So here the correct answer is option 2. Misconception 2. In the shown spinners, there are 2 colors. According to Ramesh, the probability of stopping on blue color of all 3 spinners is 1 by 2. But according to Manish, in the first spinner, the probability of stopping at blue color is 1 by 2, 1 by 4 in second and 3 by 4 in third. Find out whose understanding is correct. Like Ramesh, some children think that each spinner has 2 paths, one blue and one green. So the spinner will stop on one of these 2 paths. That is, the probability of stopping on the blue part of spinner in all 3 spinners is 1 by 2. But this is a wrong understanding. That is, option 1 is wrong answer. Here the first spinner has 2 equal paths, so all possible outcomes will be blue and green. That is, the number of all possible outcomes is 2. But condition of getting blue color is only 1. So the number of favorable outcomes is 1. In this way, the probability of getting favorable outcome, blue color, is equal to number of favorable outcomes divided by number of all possible outcomes of an experiment, which is 1 by 2. On doing 4 equal parts of second spinner, there are 3 green parts and 1 blue part. That is, the number of possible outcomes of the experiment are 4. From these, the condition of getting blue color is only 1. Therefore, the number of favorable outcomes of experiment are 1. We can say that the probability of getting blue color is equal to 1 by 4. On doing 4 equal parts of the third spinner, there are 1 green part and 3 blue parts. That is, the number of possible outcomes of the experiment are 4. From these, the condition of getting blue color is 3. Therefore, the number of favorable outcomes of experiment are 3. We can say that the probability of getting blue color is 3 by 4. In this way, the probability of getting blue color in first spinner is 1 by 2, in second spinner is 1 by 4, and in third spinner is 3 by 4. That is, option 2 is correct answer. Keep in mind that in such situations, that probability does not depend on the number of colors but on the number of equal parts. So today we have learned some misconceptions related to chance and probability.